What's up, everybody? It's your old pal Pete back again with a segment episode. Before I get to this week's books and this week's YouTube shoutouts, I want to dedicate this episode of the Basement Show to the great Carmine Infantino, who passed away this Thursday. Carmine was one of the Silver Age greats. He's most known for his work on The Flash, but he also worked on Batman. He had some stints at Marvel with Nova and the original Star Wars series, to name but a few. Thank you to Mikey Sutton, who broke the news to me on our Facebook wall. I am real happy to have met Carmine Infantino at two conventions in my life. One was at the Jacob Javits Center this past year, and I got my showcase number 4 signed. It was a big triumph for me. I'm really glad I did that. And the first time I met him, I got my first Batgirl signed. It was not Signature Series, but I didn't care at that time. That was at the Mike Carbo Con. You guys did see this one, the Detective Comics 370 that I showed you a while ago when I answered a CGC question. Carmine will definitely be missed. Comics has lost one of its greatest, so our hat is off. Carmine, I hope you're drawing somewhere up there. Let's get to some YouTube shoutouts. David Paulk wrote in and told us his guilty pleasure is anything Dinobots, and wanted to know if we could review Transformers Prime Beast Hunters when it comes out in May. I've never actually read any of the new Transformers books, but you know what? We'll give it a shot, check it out. As long as it's starting with number 1 and I don't have a lot to backtrack, and I think I can understand it, try anything. Travis Edwards wrote in and said that his guilty pleasure was Smallville Season 11. Black Buddha wrote in and said his guilty pleasure was Darkwing Duck. I am right there with you, dude. I hope that Marvel picks it up now that you know, they're owned by Disney, and let's get Darkwing back into the fray. If Mega Man and Sonic are working, I think Darkwing can work too. The Q's Crusader wrote in and said he's loving Mars Attacks from John Layman. John Layman is killing it in that series. John Layman is he kills it at just about anything he does. He's an insane writer and a really nice guy, and he's absolutely hilarious. So, and Mars Attacks is a funny concept to begin with, so he seems like the perfect person to throw into that. Another couple of YouTube shoutouts. We got Matthew Dara, who's a big Ramon fan. No pun intended there. Spiro.geek wrote in and to Penny last week and said that she should be reading Saga if, you know, this is about like it's basically a soap opera in space. He's not really enjoying it, but everyone else on the planet is. Spiro, I agree with you. I have not read it, but everyone is telling me that I'm a blasphemous heathen for not reading it. But eventually I'll get to it, just like I'll eventually get to Locke and Key, and I'll eventually get to fucking whatever the fuck else that I still have to read. 96 Komodo says he needs to get Guardians of the Galaxy. He needs to get on that. Komodo, do not forget to pick up the digital comics that Marvel is releasing for download only. They're, you know, special editions of all of the, you know, different members of Guardians of the Galaxy. They started with Drax, they came out with Rocket Raccoon, and a new one debuted this week. I haven't read it yet, but forgot who the fuck it was. Anyway, they're digital only. You can find them on like the Marvel website and shit. They're fun, so be sure to check out those. And I do question, you know, some YouTube users, they make their YouTube names, their handles, via some aspect of their lives. So 96 Komodo, do you in fact have a Komodo dragon for a pet? Just curious. Andelvar, Schmitty Dude, and Tate Monkey also wrote in, say they've been loving the show. Andelvar says he's been watching the show for 5 years and somehow has not managed to stick a fork in his brain yet. So more power to you, and thanks for all the compliments, guys. Finally, we got Doomfly Daddy, who is possibly one of the coolest YouTube names I've ever heard. He wanted to know what I thought of East of West #1. I actually read this last week and forgot to review it. East of West 1 is like this Old West story, but it's one of those post-apocalyptic Old Wests where like the world is reverted to the Old West now. And there's the 4 horsemen of apocalypse who have returned to Earth to basically destroy whatever's left of the human race. And the 4 horsemen are reborn as these just horrible little children. And they're gross and evil. And they realize, like, oh, the other dude's missing, is only treat him. So Death is running around as this white cowboy-looking Jonah Hex kind of guy. and like Jonah Hex meets fucking Clint Eastwood meets the Grim Reaper, and he's just going around killing people. And I'm not really sure where the story's going yet, but I'm definitely going to stick around. I like anything to do with the Four Horsemen of Apocalypse. So, yeah, caught my interest immediately. I also forgot to review Helheim #1 a couple weeks ago. This is basically some Vikings staked out in a northern fortress in the snow, and they're being attacked by a witch who is commanding all sorts of demons and skeletal warriors to go after them. And the king wants to sacrifice his son's girlfriend because for some reason the witch wants her. We don't know why. We're not given that answer yet. It's only the first issue. So he tries to sacrifice her and throw her to the wolves, so to speak, and the son gets in the way and the son gets killed. And then he's all sad, and somehow everybody's just kind of accepting of this, like, oh, well, you tried to kill her, your son got killed, we'll let her live, we won't try you for any crimes, your son's dead, let's drink. Seems like what Vikings would do. And then the king, like, just gets pissed off, I guess he got drunk, and he storms into the son's girlfriend's, tent, presumably to rape, ravage, and then throw her to the wolves again. And meanwhile, she turns out to be another witch of some kind, and she has brought the king's son back to life in the form of like an Incredible Hulk kind of guy. He's just a lot bigger, taller, grabs his father by the neck and says, "Unga," or some shit like that. Whatever. Interesting enough to keep me going. I'll pick up the second issue, which is coming out next week, and I'll check it out, and I'll get back to you guys, let you know how that goes. Also, want to just say a big Yo Joe. I saw G.I. Joe over the past week, and it was fucking awesome. I give it a solid A-. The Rock ruled. The fight between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow was great. The fight on the mountain that you've seen in so many of the previews. I'm sitting there because I am deathly afraid of heights. And I'm just like, can't really watch that shit. I'm just fucking like, I'd be the asshole to fall. I know it. Everything was great. They stuck to this story with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow completely. If you guys know what I'm talking about, I don't want to spoil it for you, but we all know, we saw in the first one that Storm Shadow is suspected of killing his master, and then he was last seen as a boy running out of the Arashikage compound, and that was it. He killed his master and he dipped on him. So that's that. The truth of that all comes to light. If you do know who killed the Hard Master, be the first one to write in with the correct answer, and I'll send you a free book. How's that? Little quick contest for you. You know the drill, guys. Questions@PetesBasement.com, Facebook.com/PetesBasement, and hit us up on Twitter. Just title that email, "Who Killed the Hard Master?" Try not to laugh every time you say Hard Master. I've learned to do it over time. You can do it too. The movie was really solid. Bruce Willis was great. Adrianne Palicki was stupid hot in every fucking scene. They really played her up. I was happy to see Flint in the movie. Flint is one of my favorite characters, along with Snake Eyes and Shipwreck. I did not know he was in it. I never bothered to look at the cast. Cobra Commander's outfit was sick. The faceplate with the fangs and shit was great. The guy who I thought was Major Blood turned out to be Firefly. That was a nice touch. He was the same dude that played the Punisher in Warzone, and that movie tanked, and it was in no regard to his fault. It was the assholes trying to do them fake Brooklyn accents. They should have just got me and my friends for that, but I don't want to digress. The movie was great. A solid A-, only because they didn't fucking say, "Yo, Joe!" Alright, let's get to this week's books. We're going to start out with G.I. Joe Special Missions #2. Continuing the story from the first one, they're trying to salvage this Cobra ship that went down with tons and tons of gold on it. I just really like the artwork. They got this guy, Bill Docker, who basically ties up funds for the G.I. Joe team by calling in, underhanded and under-the-table favors for, unscrupulous politicians. And I just like the way they drew Bill Docker in this particular scene because he's like a fat, slovenly human. And you can tell every chance he gets he's looking at Scarlett's tits. I love it. I love what IDW is doing with G.I. Joe. It's such a fun series, and if you are a Joe fan, you will love it too. I know a couple of you have written in and say you're loving it, so awesome. Green Lantern 19. Actual stuff finally happens. Hal eventually takes the plunge into the realm of death. You can see where he kind of fell off the cliff and cracked his fucking head open. Meanwhile, Sinestro takes on Volthoom by himself. He goes to Korrigar for help. Volthoom meets him there, and they start fighting. The end result is, Korrigar gets fucking blown the fuck up because you can't beat Volthoom. He just changes reality around you. And Sinestro's like, you fucking blew up my planet, and Volthoom kind of leaves him there for some reason. He absorbs all of the pain and despair of the entire planet, and then dips, and leaves Sinestro to find his Yellow Lantern again. Sinestro's been a Green Lantern for almost 2 years now. Way longer than I thought would be acceptable, and way longer than I thought they would, you know, drag it on for. But I've liked Sinestro as a Green Lantern, and I'd like to see now what he does by embracing the power of fear again. Green Lantern 19 had an awesome fold-out cover too, which was like, you know, when all of the core has been destroyed, fear remains, or something like that, or fear will prevail, whatever the frig it said. It was really cool. I'm enjoying Green Lantern. I really want this story to wrap up because I really want Volthoom to get his ass kicked. Looks like I'm going to have to deal with another 3 parts that are going to go through Lantern Corps, Lantern Guardians, Red Lanterns, and then finally we'll conclude with Green Lantern 20 next month. Superior Spider-Man number 7 is fucking awesome. We see Peter Parker regain some control over his body when he starts writing himself a note. But as everybody knows, you cannot read in your dream. That is scientifically proven. So assuming Peter Parker is in some sort of dream state within his own head, what he's writing is coming out like gibberish because, you know, he has no control over that segment of his brain. But he is gaining more control over his body. Doc Ock as Spidey is fighting Cardiac, who's kind of a good-hearted vigilante. He's not necessarily a villain, and Parker's trying to tell him that, like, dude, stop it! And Doc Ock's like, whoa, who's that? Who said that? And he's starting to realize that, he's gaining a little bit more and more control. He actually stops Doc Ock's hand. He lets Cardiac go when he had him by the throat, and then forces him to miss with a, this devastating punch that would have crushed this guy's skull. And if that weren't bad enough, the Avengers call him in for some Avengers emergency, and then you got Wolverine saying, it's not an emergency, it's an intervention, you're acting like a jerk-off, so what's up with you? And then they try to say, listen, we're going to put you through a barrage of tests to make sure that you are fucking Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's like, no, I'm not dealing with this. And Captain America's like, it wasn't a request. And then he grabs Cap and flips him. This calls him some sort of like shield-wielding idiot or whatever. And Superior Spider-Man number 8 will have Spider-Man versus the Avengers. And for some reason, Peter Parker's like, ooh, I wish I had some ghost popcorn right now. Like, bro, this is your body that Thor is going to decimate with his hammer. You would think you'd be a little bit more concerned about this. But I guess he wants his body back, and even if he has to go through traction for 5 months, at least he gets it back. Thanos Rising, issue 1. I picked up the regular cover, and I picked up the Scotty Young cover, because this is just ridiculously awesome. It's basically Thanos' origin. He starts out as a lonely kid, and then, the kids kind of find him intriguing because he's in a scientific society. So instead of shunning him like he expected, or he was kind of shunning himself, they invite him in to play, and there's this one little cunt who's you get the idea she's up to no good. I don't know who she is, but she tells Thanos to take his friends and go play in the caves on the ground. The caves collapse. Thanos is trying to find his friends. He doesn't want to hurt nobody. He tells this lizard, like, don't worry, buddy. No matter how long I'm trapped under here, I'm not going to eat you. And then he finds that the lizards have all eaten his friends in a very disturbing panel of dead fucking children. That's always fun to look at. So Thanos kind of realizes, life is about death, and it is what it is, so fucking man the fuck up. I have no idea what Thanos' origin is. I always kind of get a little leery when they try to paint these big bad villains as innocent children at some point, but I guess we all had to start out that way. So, whatevs. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm going to stick around because I want to know some more about Thanos, not only for the, because I love the Infinity Gauntlet and I'd like to know where Thanos came from, but also because obviously the Avengers movie is coming, so when he appears obviously in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, I'm going to want to compare and contrast how they handle his origin. Finally, 2 wrap-ups. Spawn 230. I've been buying these Spawn books because of the homages that McFarlane is paying to classic comic covers. I do find it a little disturbing when he's homaging his own shit, though. This is from an old Batman book that he drew the cover and the interior artwork for. The number escapes me at the moment. It's the exact same motherfuck cover. It's pretty much the exact same motherfuck cape. To the point where I looked at the Batman book and said, oh, that would make a cool Spawn cover. Now it's a cool Spawn cover, but it was a Batman book. Nice try, Todd. The one time you did the Spider-Man mock-up cover with Venom, I think it was 222, but don't quote me. You did 2 of your own already. Now you did 3. There's plenty of other classic covers out there that you don't have to stroke your own fucking ego for this. There's plenty of fanboys that'll do that shit for you. Last but not least is Miss Fury from Dynamite. She's a very strong female lead character. I like her a lot. It's a great book, actually. She's a very violent character. She's kind of like the Punisher meets Wonder Woman type of thing. She's not super strong, but she really, yeah, she's kind of like a female let's not throw Wonder Woman in there. Let's have a fucking Punisher meets like Snake Eyes or some shit meets, I don't know, Spider Woman or Black Widow, something like that. She's cool. It's a fun book. Speaking of fun, just to, I picked up Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos. I shared this photo on Facebook the other day whilst defending Chuck Norris to a few haters. I am a big Chuck Norris fan, and anybody that doesn't like Chuck Norris obviously don't know shit about martial arts. Hate to break the news to you. Anybody that says Bruce Lee was better, yes he was. You know why Chuck Norris is awesome? Because Bruce Lee fucking said so. That's why. Check your history books. But this was just a fun book, and I had to go pick it up. I'm going to turn you over to the rest of the fellas, and I will see you guys next week.
Hello, beautiful people. Last week I talked about some cosmic type books I was getting, so let's start off with another one of those with Thanos Rising #1. I felt I needed to get this since it's all cosmic, and I'm getting into Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova with Marvel now and such, so Thanos is going to show up at some point. I don't know much about Thanos, so this is all new to me. I'm not sure if they've ever delved into Thanos' early years before, so this might be new to you too. It looks like the book is basically going to be how a nice shy boy goes from gagging at the sight of blood to using it as war paint, more or less. So, of course, it's a girl who instigates him to step out of his comfort zone, and sometimes it's a good thing to try something new, but in Thanos' case, we know how far he takes it, and that didn't work out very well. So, I don't know who this girl is. I don't know if she's like some local manipulative hussy or someone or something else entirely that's just leading him to his ultimate destiny of being an asshole. I really like the book. There was a part where you knew Thanos was going to be a bad dude because on the day he was born, his mother held him, looked into his eyes, and then went to reach for the nearest scalpel to take that kid out. She must have saw like the devil and his constant companion of death in his beady little eyes. You can't mess with mom, man. Moms know these things, and she brought you into this world, and she'll take you out before you get to enjoy your first breath. What I didn't understand is during his birth, the nurses and doctors were apologizing that he was going to live, and they were all disappointed. They were going to run tests to see why he didn't die. Who goes through all the trouble of being pregnant and childbirth to deliver a dead baby on purpose? I didn't get it. Hopefully you guys can clear that up for me, or they'll explain it. The next book I picked up was Abe Sapien #1, The Dark and Terrible Part 1. I like the Hellboy universe, but I haven't kept up with it or remember much of things I've read in the past, so I figured now's a good time to jump on and see what's going on with Abe Sapien. Seems he had some previous drama where he died and went through some kind of near-death experience that gave him insight about who he is in his past. That put him in a coma for a bit, and then he seems to have run away. So since then, the BPRD have sort of been looking for him, and I think it's been months. So the book is Abe Sapien on the run, trying to get some private time and figure things out. Plus, it wouldn't be Hellboy if there wasn't monster stuff happening, and it seems like there's a lot more monster things happening as of late, so maybe Abe will get into that. I really like supernatural, spooky, and occult type things, so a lot of Dark Horse comics appeal to me. Although DC has had some stuff in that department too lately with Justice League Dark and Constantine, but also Phantom Stranger, which I'm digging, and #7 just came out this week. In the last few issues, the Stranger has run into a dilemma, and that's a dilemma aside from the fact that he's like a half ghost man, Soul Reaper kind of guy. The Stranger, for one reason or another, has a family who went missing in some kind of foul play while the Justice League Dark and Constantine summoned him for a chat, asking for favors, because that's what Constantine does. Now he's running around trying to figure out what happened to them and if they're safe. But duty calls, and he has to do one of his screwed up soul reaping gigs that help remove one of his sin coins, that the weight he holds. I thought his gig was pretty funny. The soul he basically had to help reap was a real douchey dude, and I think he had it coming. Anyway. Also appearing in this book was the Question. Oh crap, I don't think we've seen the Question since pre-52, right? And if I remember correctly, he was dead. In this book, he seemed kind of supernatural because him and the stranger seemed to recognize each other in some way, so I'm eager to see what's up with that and what they plan on doing with the Question these days and who he actually will be. I like the Phantom Stranger. I wonder if writers will be able to keep it interesting enough to stay ongoing. I think maybe they're going to start to struggle after a while, but I hope that they don't and it stays around because I think it's cool. There's one thing that bothers me about the Stranger, though. He's been walking the earth for centuries. With that kind of age comes wisdom and patience. Stranger ain't got no patience. He's always rushing people. Can I go now? Is that it? Blah, blah, blah. So that's the only thing now I'm like, come on, dude, really? Anyway, staying with the supernatural theme, I picked myself up some Locke and Key Omega, which people always recommending Locke and Key to me, and I never read it. So 3 isn't the best issue to jump on, but I read it, and I liked it, and the first page kind of fills you in on what I missed, and it seems interesting enough to go back and get previous issues. So in Locke and Key Omega, a demon named Dodge has been trying to obtain the Omega Key so he can open the Black Door, which is a portal to other dimensions, and he can bring out all his dark and hateful demon legion buddies, or something to that extent, you know, take over the world. The Locke family has been doing their best to fight this dude, but he possessed the body of the youngest boy in their group, so that made it pretty easy for him to infiltrate the place and obtain the Omega Key. The only person who could really see this guy for who he really is this mentally disabled kid, but of course nobody believes him, and they just want to give him another pill and shove him in another ward. Dodge is getting painfully close in this issue to obtaining the human sacrifices he needs to open up the portal. And you got the shadow crown that like makes him summon shadows, and he can make them tangible so they hurt you. Doesn't seem like the Locke kids have much of a plan to fight this dude, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Seems like it might be a tough one. But getting away from the supernatural things, the next book I read is called Snapshot. If you haven't heard about Snapshot, it's a murder mystery / conspiracy book that finds Jake Dobson stumbling across a dropped cell phone in a park with some pictures of a dead body in it. Like someone killed someone and took a picture of it. But upon doing so, he starts getting chased by what he thinks is the killer, so he freaks out and brings the phone to the police station, where they find out that the dude in the picture, Mr. Twain, is still alive, and he claims that the pictures were a prank or something, all in good fun, but Jake finds this fishy and confusing, so he takes his BFF Steve, and they go to this dude's apartment, maybe to talk to him in private, get better answers. Except when they get there, they find him dead now for real, and in this whole mess, Steve ends up getting dead by the dude who was chasing him earlier, and Jake becomes a murder suspect for both murders. While on the run, he ends up teaming up with a girl who's going through her own crap that's directly related to this mess too. Turns out her dad is the dude who was fake murdered and then real murdered, so together they try to get to the bottom of the whole situation. So by the time that you get to the current issue that just came out, Snapshot 3, the bombshell is dropped and they find out exactly what this whole mess is, and it's pretty interesting. But that just left them in more trouble, as this crap is really hitting the fan now. So I'm hoping these two kids can beat the system and not become another victim of government financial conspiracy cover-up, or however this is going to turn out. Well, that's what I read this week so far. I eventually want to get to Green Arrow and The Last of Us, which is a Dark Horse book based on a zombie video game. But maybe that'll get its own segment sometime soon. I might talk about the game too. So I hope everyone is enjoying this actual bit of spring weather we've been having. And I know I have, because that means I can read comics outside. It's like a whole different experience. And I'm looking forward to going on some comic book picnics in the park soon. So where are your favorite places to read comics? Outside, in bed, on the toilet? Do you have like a favorite comic book reading ritual or habit? Just drop a reply. I want to know. In the meantime, y'all have a great one, and we'll see you next week. Later.
Okay, so I want to talk about Thanos Rising and Locke and Key. Just those two. Thanos Rising is an origin story. Thanos, as we all know, is from Titan. The Eternals were the people living there. They're originally from Earth. That's why they look human. They look like Earthlings. But the reason why he looks the way he does is because of some sort of defective gene. I think it's called a deviant gene. And he grew up, I thought, isolated because of his appearance and everything. Not necessarily that he was humiliated and made fun of outright, but just that he was self-conscious. I don't think they always need to do that. It's a theme to try to explain why every single villain or hero act the way they act. I think it just gets done too much. I'm perfectly fine with having a villain just be a villain. You don't have to always know why, what motivates them, other than just them wanting to either money or power, or just because they're insane. I don't think you always need to know, okay, well, they were bullied as a child and now they're an asshole. It's not always necessary. I think it takes away sometimes from the excitement, because you just have this villain. It takes away the mystique too. You just have this guy who's just bad. He wants power. You don't really need to know that people shoved his face in the sand when he was a kid. There are characters like Magneto that you do need to know the background because it's historical and it has to do with him being a mutant, so that's different. But like with this issue, where it leaves off, they could have gotten to that point halfway through. The pacing is off, and I've said this before. I think, they could have. I feel they could have taken care of his whole childhood in one issue if they did it right. It's going to go at least to 2 and maybe even to 3, or maybe even more. It's not necessary. So I don't know. I always like Thanos. He's a great character. Infinity Gauntlet. If you haven't read it, you have to read it. That's kind of when he got really, really popular. He's been popular since. I mean, he was in Thanos Imperative a few years ago. The Annihilation, not the Annihilation. Great character. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Locke and Key. It's just about ending the Omega story. There's Welcome to Lovecraft, Head Games, Crown of Shadows, Keys to the Kingdom, Clockworks, and now we're close to the end of the Omega series. So it's a great story. If you're interested in it, do not start reading it now. I mean, they give you a little synopsis in the beginning of each issue, and you could figure it out. But I would recommend you get from the beginning. I have Welcome to Lovecraft. I lent it to somebody, and I forget who. I think I have an idea of who I sent it to though. I have Head Games here. Highly recommended. Basically, the idea is that you have three kids, Tyler, Kinsey, and Bode Locke. They inherited this house where all these keys, they have access to all these keys, and these keys do crazy things. One key you can open up your mind and put things in and take things out. One key makes you a ghost. One key makes you a giant. One key changes your gender. One key can transport you anywhere you want. And there's one key called the Omega Key, and it opens up the black door to where all the demons are. Now, 30 years ago, I guess, a demon slipped out because of these kids' father, Rendell Locke. Him and his friends were fooling around and accidentally opened up this door with the key, and one of the demons took over one of their friends, Dodge, who was perfectly fine before. But now this demon took him over, so now he's this demon. And he was locked away up until now, and now he's trying, the whole series, from the beginning to the end, he's been trying to get all these keys, accumulate all these keys, especially the Omega Key that opens up the door. Because once he opens up the door, the demons come out, and the demons have to possess other people. They need hosts. So this has been what he's been trying to do the whole time. Now, a while back, Dodge took over Bode's body. Bode is not dead. He's like a ghost that nobody really can see. But he's been pretending to be Bode to get around and do what he needs to do. The only one that can see the real Bode, who's a ghost, is his friend, who's mentally challenged, and nobody believes him. But his friend was sent to a hospital, and now he's on his way back. So a lot of things are happening now, very thrillerish. Not the band, not the album, but the genre. It's a lot of things are happening all at once. They're probably all going to meet at one place at the end, which I like that kind of stuff. Like kind of like what happened at the end of Heroes season 1. Everybody was meeting at the same area. I like that kind of stuff where all the characters come together from different places, and so there's probably only a few issues left. It's a great story, and I would highly recommend it. And the only other thing I want to just talk about really quickly was Korgi. This is book 2. We have book 1. Book 3 is out too. I bought this for someone. She loves corgis, the Welsh Pembroke dog animals. And it's just a cute book. There's no dialogue. It's just all pictures, all done through pictures, but it's really cool by Christian Slade. Really good artwork. So if you have, it's perfect for kids, and especially if those kids have dogs, or even if those kids have dogs that are corgis, it's perfect. So I'm gonna keep reading Thanos Rising. Pick up Locke and Key if you haven't. It's a great story. It's by Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, and Gabriel Rodriguez. They've been doing the same art and same writer the whole time. I love when they do that too. They're doing that with Chew. And Joe Hill also did Horns and Heart-Shaped Box, which are actual books that don't have pictures in them. So if you read books that don't have pictures in them, I would recommend those. Those are good too. So pick it up, and we'll see you next time.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another segment episode of Pete's Basement. Before I start this week's episode, I want to restart the whole fucking film because I'm stubborn.
I'm assuming they're doing this because there's going to be a bigger... I'm assuming there's going to be a big story...
Carmine Infantino was one of comics' greats. He basically started the Silver Age. He's most known for his work on The Flash back during, when he was in Showcase, and then when I moved over to the Flash comic book, he also did Batman, and he had some stints on Marvel, and, fuck! Cunt! Dude, stop it!